Soon we'll start our session, but before we begin, would like to inform you that there will be a question and answer session to all of the panelists today. All of you can submit the question by scanning the QR code shown on the screen and clicking the question box. So once again, we have a question and answer session right after the delivery of the panelists today. And all of you can submit the question by scanning the QR code shown on the screen and clicking the question box. Thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I cannot hear anything. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. I know it's an injury time after lunch, maybe a little bit of, sleepy at the moment, but we have a very important session after this. And I'd like to welcome everyone once again to the 47th IPA Convention and Exhibition with a title this year, Enabling Oil and Gas Investment and Energy Transition for Energy Security. My name is Rahma Alia, or you simply can call me Alia, and I'm very honored to moderate this session right after this. We have very cool speakers coming to the stage. And before we start, I would like to remind you some of the things that we have the white paper that you can actually scan on the QR code on the screen. And also at the very end of the discussion, we open for Q&A. So please do have your questions ready by also scanning the QR, and you can click and have the questions there. Thank you very much once again, and let's just start this session. I'll just give a little bit of a background. Well, this is actually a common knowledge where everybody knows, but we want to borrow the heads of the CEOs of the oil and gas companies. They are the ones who actually decide where this industry is going. So we want to know, how do they navigate the situation in this transition era? Now, as we know, the energy transition is usually bumping against the energy security requirements for the short term. And on the long run, well, the decarbonization efforts will still be done. And how do we bridge the situation in order to have a smooth transition, having the affordable, equitable, and also just transition? Well, at the end of the day, everyone wants to have an affordable energy supply. And during the last years, we also understood that there are multiple crises that cause disruptions to the energy system. And of course, this becomes the trilemma of the oil and gas industry. So let's just invite our speakers that will be talking on how they navigate the situation. First of all, I would like to invite Mr. Tengku Mohamed Taufik, the CEO of PETRONAS. Please come forward. Oh, there he is. And we have the second speaker, Mrs. Nicke Widyawati, President Director and CEO of Pertamina. Please give a big round of applause as well. So we have two speakers, and the last but not least, coming from the UAE, Mr. Mansoor Mohamed Al-Hamid, the Chief Executive Officer of Mubadala Energy. All right, so all the speakers are here. Please have a seat, everyone. And before we start, we have a video that will showcase the CEO industry outlook in navigating the energy trilemma, which is energy security, sustainability, and affordability in oil and gas business. And I invite everyone to watch this video.
Navigating the energy trilemma, energy security, sustainability, and affordability in oil and gas business. Ketidakpastian pandemi, geopolitik, dan ekonomi yang terjadi dalam beberapa tahun ini menyebabkan kesenjangan kebutuhan energi dengan ketersediaan energi bersih. Melonjaknya harga energi akibat konflik telah menyebabkan fokus jangka pendek bergeser menjadi ketahanan dan keterjangkauan energi. Padahal, jangka waktu komitmen pemenuhan pengurangan emisi berdasarkan kesepakatan Paris semakin dekat. Keinginan mewujudkan dekarbonisasi melalui alternatif energi yang berkelanjutan untuk mengurangi ketergantungan pada bahan bakar fosil semakin gencar. Sementara itu, pemenuhan energi yang berasal dari energi baru terbarukan belum bisa memenuhi seluruh kebutuhan energi di masa depan. Berbagai kondisi tersebut membuat dunia saat ini dihadapkan pada 3 tantangan energi atau disebut dengan Trilemma energi, yaitu ketahanan energi, kelestarian lingkungan, dan keterjangkauan energi. Menurut survei World Energy Council tahun 2023, dari ketiga tantangan tersebut, ketahanan energi menjadi isu prioritas pemangku kepentingan energi saat ini. Meski demikian, perkembangan transisi energi tetap menjadi perhatian. Kondisi pasar energi global menunjukkan migas sebagai industri dengan infrastruktur yang lebih siap masih menjadi sumber energi pilihan seiring dengan upaya transisi energi. Hal ini dapat terlihat dalam keputusan investasi energi global. Data International Energy Agency tahun 2023 menunjukkan pendapatan neto global penjualan migas menyentuh 4 triliun US dollar pada tahun 2022. Investasi di sektor migas pada tahun 2023 diperkirakan akan meningkat sebesar 6% atau setara dengan 950 miliar US dollar. Di sisi lain, investasi CCS, CCUS, dan hidrogen pada tahun 2022 menyentuh 1 miliar US dollar untuk komitmen dekarbonisasi. Perusahaan energi internasional juga berusaha untuk beradaptasi dengan kondisi trilemma energi yang beragam. Investasi energi di negara-negara besar seperti Amerika Serikat, India, dan Tiongkok mulai menekankan pada upaya kelestarian lingkungan bersama dengan ketahanan energi. Sementara itu, negara-negara berkembang masih fokus untuk mencapai ketahanan energi. Di Indonesia, hasil FGD White Paper yang dilaksanakan IPA bersama Wood Mackenzie menunjukkan bahwa para pemangku kepentingan di sektor energi sepakat memprioritaskan ketahanan dan keterjangkauan energi sebagai isu utama saat ini. Sesi ini memberikan kesempatan kepada pelaku usaha sektor energi yang telah beradaptasi dengan tantangan trilemma energi di berbagai wilayah operasi guna mendukung transisi energi yang berkelanjutan.
Okay, so that was the video. So finally the question is, how do we meet the world's current and future demand while also driving the decarbonization of energy systems? Well, certainly this needs a lot of investments, not only on the low carbon projects, but on the traditional oil and gas development. Now, how do these people, the CEOs, navigate this, very transitional situation, unprecedented and not easy? It's always changing. First of all, I would like to say thank you for flying from far away, from Kuala Lumpur, and also from Abu Dhabi, I believe. And Ibu Nicke, you're flying from somewhere in Indonesia to ICE BSD, because this is quite a far away from the center of Jakarta. So now let's begin with Mr. Tansri. Is that how we call you, Mr. Tansri? Okay, so we heard that, you try to boost the gas as the bridging fuel. And PETRONAS is also having 0.2 gigawatt, if I'm not mistaken, renewable energy during the first quarter of 2023. Also currently developing some carbon capture and storage, CCS, so we talk about it, CCS, CCUS, all these terms. And for Gantari specifically, it's fully operationalized to provide cleaner energy solutions. And you've also some ongoing progress as well for the net zero carbon emissions by 2050. I would like to hear more about that. So we have 10 minutes for you to enlighten all of us with your words. Thank you very much and take it away.
Terima kasih Miss Alia, you are very well researched. Mungkin saya tidak perlu buat pembentangan, tetapi maybe thank you for that introduction. Pertama saya mau dengan izin saya minta kebenaran untuk mengucapkan kepada pihak panitia penyelenggara IPA. This is a great honor. It is a privilege to be on the stage with an esteemed panel such as this one. Speakernya beken-beken semua, seperti yang saya kenali, Ibu Nicke yang saya hormati, dan teman lama saya, Mr. Mansoor. Mewakili pihak PETRONAS, dalam kesempatan ini IPA nampaknya satu sukses yang besar dan rasanya temanya amat relevan di dalam waktu yang amat mencabar, bukan hanya untuk Indonesia, ASEAN, sejagat, tetapi seluruh dunia. Dengan izin, saya teruskan dengan bahasa Inggris. It is a fantastic opportunity to be here to address many like-minded individuals who are navigating what is potentially the existential challenge that defines this generation and indeed will pose the biggest challenge for the continuity of our economic systems and our civilizations as we know it. And what is that challenge? That's the energy crisis. The energy crisis. Notice I choose the energy crisis and not the climate crisis. Why? We will explain through Q&A later. It is indeed relevant that the theme of today's session, navigating the energy trilemma, energy security, sustainability and affordability in the oil and gas business. The energy industry today is facing what we can only label as increasing scrutiny and pressure. I'm being gentle here. I think some of us face this in probably far more humongous terms than we can ever account for. Now, we acknowledge this. We here sitting in the heart of ASEAN with 700 million people, here in Indonesia with more than 270 million people, we acknowledge this. We are in the front line of facing the results of our actions in the past century. And I say our, it's a collective global responsibility. There's only one atmosphere. We are dealing with a climate crisis. We're dealing with a climate crisis that forces us to look at sustainability not as a nice to have, but it's a must have. We acknowledge the science-based evidence. Many of our counterparts do. The countries in Asia have embraced nationally determined contributions to NDCs. All of them, I think 9 out of 10, I think in ASEAN have their own net zero pathway. So insofar as acknowledging that the climate crisis in front of us, this is why I chose to focus on the energy crisis rather than the climate crisis in this presentation, I think everybody's on board. Everybody is on board. So if I dwell upon the role of PETRONAS, we are often seen because of our footprint as an IOC. But in essence, our DNA, we were born as a national oil company. Our task was to maximize the value of hydrocarbon resources and ensure long-term value creation from the molecules that we extract. And we have a duty, much like my counterpart next to me, Ibu Nicke. PETRONAS must monetize national resources. We have a responsibility to help the country navigate the energy transition. But we also have an implicit obligation under the act that we brought us forth to ensure economic activity continues and what we do fuels economic prosperity and the right of Malaysia, in our context, to pursue economic prosperity. And that is why it rings true this morning when the Minister, Bapak Minister ada menyebut tadi pagi, every energy pathway must take into account the national context. It is the God-given right of every sovereign nation to pursue the economic prosperity that it so richly deserves. Now, let's take one step back up. Southeast Asia, energy demand growth. Energy demand in Southeast Asia has continued to grow annually since the beginning of this century, 3%. And we see this pattern continuing up to 2030. As a share of global emissions, it is below 8%. Now contrast this to 3 countries who have arguably reached developed status, gone far, and they are probably the drivers of what is defined as the largest economies in the world, United States, China, and Europe. They contribute north of 40% of global emissions. This is now the imbalance we seek to address. We are in a region where GDP per capita stretches from $2,000 to $9,000, $90,000. So there's a vast spectrum of wealth and affordability. And this is where we need to address the energy needs of this particular region, which seeks to exercise its right to grow. And we don't speak only for ASEAN. I think the context is very much similar to large swaths of Middle East and Africa. And why we need to deal with the energy crisis is that ultimately, if we don't address this energy demand, it is very convenient for people from the outside in to look at the cause being the supply. We have to make sure that this energy crisis is seen as a systems challenge. We have seen narrative everywhere point towards the suppliers, the producers being the root of the problem. But I think this needs to be dealt with holistically, from energy efficiency, from how we develop. All of this needs to be tackled together. It is very easy and it's very lazy, I would contend, to look at countries and say, you shouldn't produce any more hydrocarbons. So as we move on, we have embraced the need to deal with our emissions. Anything from flare reduction, anything from pushing for energy efficiency. Our LNG facilities are pushing the agenda for electrification. And one big lever, which I must speak about, is CCS. Can we move to the next slide, please? CCS. We will continue to deal with CCS as a key lever in carbon reduction. This is where I think a lot of people see CCS as a means of legitimizing the continuity of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, whatever scenario you look at, will still be part of the energy mix well into the first half of the century. You cannot remove it arbitrarily, abruptly, lest you risk civil unrest and strife and the lack of economic development. I think, Ms. Alia, you mentioned earlier, this has to be a just and responsible transition. A sustainable future cannot be one where much of the world is left behind while only maybe 20% of the world's population lives in a sustainable, luxurious ecosystem. Everybody has the right to pursue that economic growth. So you mentioned earlier also that we brought forth Gentari. We acknowledge, and I mentioned to you, that PETRONAS as a national oil company is not oblivious to the fact that the energy crisis needs to be addressed via new sources of renewable energy. And in this context, we understood that the foundations need to be put in place. Gentari was set up in 2022. It's fully operationalized. There are three major pillars aiming to deliver up to 30 gigawatts of renewable energy, according itself up to 10% market share of green mobility in Asia Pacific, and also pursuing hydrogen solutions. Bring all of this together, and you mentioned some numbers earlier. 2022, we achieved 1.6 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. We've had some notable acquisitions abroad because we recognize that this will be part of the new energy mix. But will it be an abrupt change? That's something we can deal with in the Q&A. As I conclude, we don't just put declarations and issue scattergun promises. We have put forth the net zero carbon emissions by 2050 pathway with defined metrics, 49.5 million tons of CO2 equivalent by 2024. Yes, you can check your calendar, that's next year. 50% reduction in methane emissions from PETRONAS operations, PETRONAS gas value chain by 2025. By 2030, we'll amp that up to 70% of methane reduction and absolute 25% reduction of GHG in 2030, eventually moving to 2050. And I have members of my senior management team who are often reminded this is part of their KPI. We work together in partnership and collaboration. I think next slide as I conclude this. And I think this morning was a very good emblematic decision that we made. We entered into the Masala PSC. We believe in pursuing and delivering this. We need to do it in a differentiated way. I want everybody to remember that as I close this off, that partnership and collaboration, not only by companies, but also by geographies, by policymakers, in getting alignment is the only way we're going to be able to collectively unlock what is an energy systems challenge. And I do believe that partnership, as the slide says, supported by stable and pragmatic policies, is the only way forward. I will close by leaving you with this slide, which outlines our statement of purpose, which is to become a progressive energy and solutions partner, enriching lives for a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause. Wow, it's a very clear vision. Wow, that's just a little bit of a part of the show, I would say. So very clear vision from PETRONAS on how to navigate the situation. And we saw also the target of the net carbon emission as well. And also the key word there is this is a work of everybody, and also there needs to be a political will from the government as the enabler, for example, and also a lot of collaborations from across sectors. Now, I forgot to do something for you. I forgot to actually introduce who you are. He talked a lot already. So, Mr. Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik, this is going to take another 10 minutes. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Finance and Accounting from Strathclyde University, Glasgow, Scotland. His areas of expertise include developing and steering key business strategies, organizational transformation, and financial and risk management. He currently holds board positions in PETRONAS Karigali SD and BHD, PETRONAS International Corporation Ltd, as well as PETRONAS Refinery and Petrochemical Corporation SD and BHD. And in addition to your role in PETRONAS, Mr. Tan Sri is the chairman of Gentari Board of Directors, the National Trust Fund, Exco World Business Council for Sustainability Development, World Economic Forum, Oil and Gas Governance Forum, and co-chair of the ASEAN Leaders for Just Energy Transition Community. There you go, 10 minutes. All right, so PETRONAS already did the presentation. Now I'd like to go to Ibu Nicke, Mrs. Nicke Widyawati, but don't stand up yet, Ibu, because I need to introduce you as well. You know, Indonesia, Pertamina is Indonesia's state-owned energy company, and Ibu Nicke oversees an enterprise with more than $57 billion in annual revenue and around 34 employees around the globe. Ibu. She ranked 25th in Forbes as the most powerful women international 2020 and has been named by Fortune magazine as one of the most powerful women outside of the US in 2020 and 2021. She began her career 33 years ago, even though she was still a student at the university. It was Mega Ultra, if I'm not mistaken, and then she was the director of strategic procurement of PLN, State Electricity Company, and in Pertamina, within only a few months of time, she was made the acting president director and concurrently human resources director before being appointed as president director and CEO of Pertamina from August 2018. So Ibu, we want to know how we face this as Indonesians. We know Indonesia is very vast and we want a just, affordable energy for everyone. Now we would like to hear it from Ms. Nicke herself. Please take away the stage. The podium is here, by the way, Ibu. Yes, yes, over there, Ibu. Do you feel comfortable? Okay, 10 minutes. That will be the allocated budget. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alia. First of all, I want to extend our appreciation to IPA that giving us the opportunity to just a bit sharing about the situation, how to navigating the oil and gas industry during the transition energy period. And I also very great honor being here among the prominent speakers. And my friend also, Tan Sri, Tengku, and Mr. Mansoor. Okay, we will start. I want to try to explain how each company and all country manage the energy trilemma and how is the situation. Maybe we can start with, I think the slide is a common slide about energy trilemma, but actually all countries now is in a grip of complex energy trilemma, and it requires every leader in the country, in the company, to make a very difficult trade-off, even though everybody say that you have to balance all the trilemma, but actually we have to pick the priority and then make a balance of the rest of it. So the situation now is we have to meet the current and future energy demand, while we also have to driving the carbonization of our legacy business, oil and gas. And actually until now, the fossil energy, oil and gas, is the industry that creating a very valuable activity, valuable earning for each country, and allow us to develop the technology the new technology development, and also the infrastructure development to distribute all the energy to the rest of the country. The energy trilemma, energy security, affordability, and sustainability. Each country have a different situation of the energy or economic state development and also social challenge. So that's why it will take also the different approach or energy transition pathway. On the next view slide, we can show how is the situation. It's very colorful, right? This is the GDP per capita or around the globe. The colorful things, the beauty things is there is a gap. There is a very wide between, the developed country and the developing country. So the situation is different when we come to GDP per capita. And the next slide, it will lead also to the energy consumption per capita. The rest part of the part of the globe have a very high energy consumption per capita, but the rest is quite low. We can say that the highest is more than 200,000 kilowatt hour per capita, but the lowest is around less than 400 kilowatt hour per capita. It's a big gap. And then there is just like a coin. When you consume the more energy and you can emit higher CO2 emission. There is a situation, the CO2 emission per capita in G20 country. 15 country is above global average, 4.5. You can see that 12, 11 point something. And the total carbon emission of G20 country contribute around 75% of the global emission. But you can see some 5 countries is actually lower than the global average, into Indonesia, just 2.3. So this different situation lead us to different response to energy trilemma. Next. And we are talking about the affordability is also quite different. Some countries have to spend more budget allocation for subsidy, China, Indonesia as well. And 1.6% from the GDP have to spend for energy subsidy to keep maintaining the energy affordability for each people in the country. Next. So this is Indonesia. As I mentioned before, there is just like a coin. There is a challenge, but also the opportunity. Indonesia have more than 17,000 islands with 280 million people. It's very, very large, nation. It should take 7 hours flight from the west end, Sabang, to the east end, Merauke. Just like from Jakarta to South Korea. Okay, but we are also blessing. We are actually a naturally endowed country that blessing with very rich natural resources. So from that perspective, we are the biggest producer and biggest reserve on nickel, and second biggest for tin, and so on. We also have the potential for new and renewable energy power generation, more than 400 gigawatt. So there is an opportunity for Indonesia to build more energy, to increase more energy consumption in order as a catalyst of growing our economic growth. So the situation next, we are also the second largest low-cost natural-based solution. The second largest for mangrove means we can also do reducing the methane emission. And there is something that my friend from Pertamina also mentioned about the CCUS. We have a potential for storage CO2 in our reservoirs more than 400 gigaton CO2. So there is an opportunity to Indonesia on how we can achieve the net zero emission target by 2060. Since oil and gas, next slide, you can see that oil and gas still be there in our energy mix, but the proportion will be less. But we cannot just decarbonize the oil and gas sector and develop the new and renewable energy. We need CCUS and we need nature-based solution to reduce, to put the CO2 and methane gas on the ground. Next, and this is a Pertamina strategic role. So we have to maintain the energy security. So the government have a target to increase the production of oil and gas. 60% of Indonesia Pertamina capex will be allocated to oil and gas sector. But we do it different way with green operation. So we also have some initiative of decarbonization. The second is we try to strengthening our energy efficiency, energy independency through unleashing our domestic resources. And the third is develop the new and renewable energy. With these three main agenda, we can support the government target to achieve net zero emission by 2060. Next. And I'm so very proud that last year we successfully reduced the 31% of our carbon emission from our internal operation, from upstream, midstream, and downstream. And this achievement put Pertamina in the better position globally in terms of ESG performance. It's very important for oil and gas industry. Next, this is our net zero emission program. We will, and actually 2 of our refinery already converted, become biorefinery that produce bioenergy. Now we are selling the final product B35, and yesterday we launched our bioethanol product, and soon we will launch also the SAF, sustainable efficient fuel. And we also will increase the double capacity of our geothermal operation during the next 3 years, and we also start to produce the green hydrogen from geothermal. We also develop the hydrogen, and also the new and renewable energy, the battery ecosystem, starting from battery for electric vehicle, and we also acquire the 2 wheels electric vehicle to increase the penetration of EV in Indonesia, natural-based solution, and also carbon capture. So this is our commitment, and form of our commitment, we allocate around 15% of our capex for low carbon investment. There is a situation at last slide. So this is the global collaboration that we know that we cannot do it by ourselves, even though Indonesia as the developing country emit fewer carbon emission, but actually our population, economy, and also natural ecosystem has impacted at the most devastated situation due to climate change. So we will move forward, but need global cooperation in 3 areas. First is technology. We need technology. We have natural resources, we have a demand, but we need the technology. And also we need the flow of finance from developed to developing country. And the third one is very important, is how to prepare the people readiness to come to low carbon technology business. So we need the global collaboration to solve the main agenda, a main challenge, and we need also the support from the government for all country about the regulation that allow us to carbon trading mechanism regionally and globally and also the financing, the technology, as well as upskilling our workforce to be ready to new and renewable energy. So everybody said that no one left behind during energy transition. Let's do that together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause as well for Mrs. Nicke. So there's a very high commitment from Pertamina, definitely, to go into the transitional period. And also, Indonesia is blessed with abundant of energy resources other than fossil fuels. For example, other than coal, we have the hydrogen. We also have the nickel in order for us to have more and more electric vehicles. So that was from Ms. Nicke. And we still have one more, as I mentioned before, the last but not least, coming from probably the fathers from Abu Dhabi, from UAE. So I have a great honor to also interview you here on the stage, Mr. Mansoor. So Mr. Mansoor Al-Hamid was appointed as CEO of Mubadala Energy in February 2021, and prior to his appointment, he held the position of Chief Growth Officer, where he was responsible for all new business development and mergers and acquisitions activities at Mubadala Energy. And he brings with him more than 15 years of diverse experience in the oil and gas industry and across various disciplines of business leadership. Mansoor joined Mubadala Energy in 2010. Before that, he worked in highly diversified private sector business based in the UAE and gaining experience across commercial and managerial roles held in various business sectors. And he also holds BSc degree in business administration from the American University in Dubai and 2 MSc degrees from Abu Dhabi University and National Defense College in Abu Dhabi. So I hope you're ready with just a little bit of enlightenment for us. Doesn't have to be 10 minutes, but I know that you are prepared with something. So now the floor is yours. You may take the podium. Go ahead, Mansoor. Yes, please give it.
Assalamu alaikum. It's my great pleasure to be here with you today, and it's a pleasure to join this valuable panel. I think today's topic is a really important topic, and I think it has been an important moment that we all together join this sort of event that is really, I'm sure, that's going to be a valuable outcome of it. So I think just to kick off this discussion, let me just to give a brief introduction of to those who are not familiar with us and what Mubadala Energy's history is. So I think we are an international energy company that is fully owned by Mubadala Investment, which is wholly owned by the government of Abu Dhabi. We are 70% gas weighted. We have presence across 11 countries. And I'm pleased to say that we are enjoying a fruitful partnership here in the region. And I think from our side, I think we are present here in Indonesia since 2004. And since 2013, where we started our operating Ruby gas field. In addition, we are in Andaman exploration blocks, which we find it an exciting area for us, especially after last year's gas discovery. And we are optimistic about the outcome of our drilling activity for this year in our operated South Andaman. And the reason why I'm saying that is that we are committed, and this aligns with our long-term growth, which we think aligns with the energy transition, and committed to support Indonesia's energy goals as well. So when we talk about the energy trilemma, the starting point is how to approach the energy transition. I think in this area, and specifically here in this region, I think there are 3 key areas that informs our response. First, gas is a bridge fuel because it's 50% less CO2 than coal, especially that it's abundant, and the infrastructure is in place and ready for transportation to consumers. And in the short and medium term, it can be a low-hanging fruit, especially that 55% of the electricity production comes from coal-fired power stations. And second, we must meet the increasing demand in order to, and at the same time, we have to be meeting that demand in an efficient and safe way. I think the forecasts here in Southeast Asia speaks for themselves. I think according to Wood Mackenzie, the prediction is that there will be a 66% growth in incremental gas demand, coupled with 7 times, to 2050, coupled with 7 times increase in the LNG demand. And third, I think as we accept this transition journey and going to accelerate it, I think we need to make sure it's an equitable to our people. According to World Bank, there are around 4 billion people worldwide. I think they don't have access to reliable energy for cooking. So therefore, I think we should not lose sight that the fact of affordability, safe and reliable energy is a huge driver to development and progress. So when we talk about sustainability, we should as well think about it differently in a way that, of course, what we do for emission and environment is vital, but also social and governance is important. We are in process of launching our sustainability report, which highlights our approach in a responsible business. So what we see in this slide, I think, highlights as a snapshot of what's these highlights that will be available in the report. I'm mentioning sustainability because as the energy trilemma, it requires, I'm mentioning the sustainability because the energy trilemma requires us to think about it in a holistic way. It's, yes, low carbon is important, but as well, let's not forget that the sustainability, making it sustainable to our people and to their communities is important as well. Maybe you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So what is Mubadala doing in order to navigate and against these challenges? We have come up with a clear plan with a strategy that will navigate through these, through the trilemma, and that falls under 3 buckets. Focusing on gas as a bridge fuel, building on our 70% gas-weighted portfolio, expanding in new energy areas such as blue hydrogen and CCUS, as well as determination in continuing to decarbonize our operation. We are committed to continue this journey with our partners and to ensure this successful journey results with an equitable way. We need to foster strong partnerships, continue investing in technologies and innovation, but also let's not forget we have to bring the people and their communities along with this journey and progress it. So we are, from Mubadala side, we are active in playing a proactive role in the energy transition and position ourselves as part of a responsible business investor. And I would like to thank giving me this opportunity and looking forward for our panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Round of applause, please. Wow. Yes, so also we heard bold proposition. We heard how decarbonization efforts were also have been taking place as well, and looking as well onto other diversified products. There's gas, also hydrogen, and more responsible and sustainable way of doing business. That's what we're looking at, and also including everyone in this effort. So we've heard from all of the CEOs here, and as I promised to all of you, we open now for Q&A. There's a lot of questions. Why are these efforts are so hard to do? Because, you know, at the end of the day, as we mentioned before as well, we want a just, affordable energy. What happens then if we go to more renewable type of energy? What about the conventional one? What do we have to do with it? And how do we make a smooth transition? Those are the questions that popped up in my head, but I don't know about you. Let's see if we have question already. We have one actually, as seen on the screen here from Mr. Budi Atmiko from PSC. Thank you so much for the question. So this one goes to Bapak Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik from PETRONAS. Yes, you mentioned about the implementation of CCS or CCUS as a global company, and perhaps you can elaborate your CCS and CCUS plan in Indonesia and also the future. What are the opportunities lie there? Go ahead.
Makasih. Saya panggil Mbak Alia ya. Kalau sebut nama saya Bapak Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik, panjangnya bukan main, pakai Taufik saja mungkin lebih cocok, Pak. I think the implementation of CCS and CCUS, this morning we entered into an agreement to take up, and in partnership with Pertamina, up to 35% of what Shell has given up in Masela. Part of the development plan includes undertaking CCS. Why? All three partners are forward-looking, understanding that the region needs the energy. LNG, I think all three partners are clear on this position that LNG offers, for some it's not even a transition fuel, potentially even a destination fuel, because it offers the long-term base load to accompany renewables. But with LNG demand set to grow, today we are in a north of a 400 million ton per annum market. We potentially could lead up to 550 to 600 depending on your scenarios. This is why, as Ibu Nicke has mentioned earlier, when we believe that oil and gas needs to be part of the energy mix, Pak Budi, CCS and CCUS must now accompany it. I realized that I was just reminded probably by a number of my nervous staff, they were mouthing media. Because I mentioned earlier the focus here when we spoke about the energy crisis. This does not mean I will wantonly, irresponsibly go forth and tell my VP of Exploration who's staring me at the face here, and I'm my VP of International Assets to just go look for oil and gas hydrocarbons and produce without any degree of responsibility of accountability to the climate. That's not the message I want to send. In addressing the importance of the energy crisis, you must be differentiated. We believe the primary license is still safety. It needs to be cost optimized, needs to be reliable, and now more important than ever, every development plan must take into account carbon abatement. And we see CCS as critical to that journey for this industry. Any country, as Nicke has generously shared, which has more than 400 gigatons of CCS and carbon storage potential, you almost have an obligation to offer this as a solution to the rest of the world. There are other geologies and other geographies not in a position with an abundance of hard-to-abate sectors with no home for the carbon that can clearly use your service. But as she has also rightly pointed out, and we take the pains to also highlight, policy alignment is now an imperative discussion that must be held not only between businesses but also with governments and financial institutions. If we get policy clarity and policy coherence, we can then effectively see how we can move carbon across borders, address the need for abatement as part of an energy system, and also address the hard-to-abate sectors in one fell swoop. Indonesia has got massive potential to address that need, not only for ASEAN, wider Asia, but also to the many countries with hard-to-abate sectors and seeking to switch their energy systems.
Thank you very much for the answer, Pak Taufik. Yeah. So, before we go on to the next one, we know that after the pandemic, the energy demand is rising. So the energy companies are now trying to cope up with all these demand. On the other side, we have to have a balance with the transition. So how do you ensure that, we have a transition effort, but on the other side, especially in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, we are a developing country and we have a lot of activities that need, energy. So how do we have this balance, Ibu, and also Pak Mansoor and Pak Taufik, between the transition and security of energy?
So asking this question or not this question? There is also...
Yes, there's also quite a
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So, with Indonesian current situation, now we are still net imported country. So, our first priority is securing the energy supply for Indonesia and achieving the energy independency. National energy independency means we have to produce more energy for domestic demand. The government itself have an aspiration to increase the oil and gas production. So why we still put a lot of capex on that area, but the carbonization is still be there. What Tan Sri mentioned, that we have to explore the new gas block, the new oil and gas block, but we have to also apply the CCUS to reduce the emission. So our first priority now is energy security and energy independency, especially for Indonesia that have 17,000 islands and more than 280 million people. The affordability, accessibility is also very important. Accessibility is, we can say that the most difficult part in our mandate right now from the government. But in the same time, we also will driving the environmental sustainability as well, since the data say that Indonesia have a lot of natural resources to develop the new renewable energy as well as critical materials and also new renewable energy potential for power generation. We have to do it balance, but still we have to choose the priority. So our priority now is security and affordability as well as accessibility, but at the same time, we put an extra effort for sustainability. So for Indonesia, actually energy transition not only to reduce carbon emission, but also to strengthening to achieve our energy independency. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ibu. Would you like to add, Mr. Mansoor? And also, Pak Taufik, your turn will come later.
I think with respect to energy, how to balance between energy security and energy transition, I think both of them are inherently linked, and sacrificing one of them will jeopardize the other. So we believe that gas will provide that balance between both, as well as there are broad consensus that the gas is a bridge fuel, which produces 50% less CO2 than coal for power generation, as well as this industry has been successful because it has provided a reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy, enabling economies worldwide to develop and progress. So from our end, I think we have pivoted our strategy to align, to expand last year to expand across the value chain, gas value chain, and explore new energy areas such as blue hydrogen and CCUS, while as well decarbonizing our operation. Here in Southeast Asia, emission impact of coal to gas switching is huge, while also providing the energy security needs for the region. According to ASEAN Development Bank, 94% of all new coal-fired power stations are in Southeast Asia, and roughly 55% of electricity production is from coal-fired power stations. So in this context, how to bring that balance between both energy transition and energy security? There are three key ways. You have technology and innovation by enhancing efficiencies and unlocking new areas such as CCUS, which we are pleased that today we have had the honor to sign an MOU on carbon capture and utilization and storage here in Indonesia with Pertamina. So I think this is an area that is really important in order to accelerate. In addition, one of the part of our digital transformation strategy, we are pleased that we have launched our digital twin project in our flagship gas platform, Pigaga offshore Malaysia, This is part of, in order to operationally monitor remotely, as well as reducing emissions. The second thing, it's people. We have to grow from within, and while as well attract a new generation that help us accelerate this journey. We are investing in a 2-year apprenticeship scheme in partnership with Schlumberger to develop UAE talents in digital skills and energy transition. And I'm pleased to say that 75% of our cohort are females. And third, which is not less important, partnerships. I think energy transition will rely a lot on partnerships to de-risk capital, as well as leverage from different perspectives and strengths. And partnership is in our DNA and one of Mubadala's core values, and that includes partnership with governments and regulators to help supporting, creating the right ecosystem that can create these new markets and make them work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mansoor. And I believe Pak Taufik would like to add just a little bit.
Mungkin udah dimatiin ya, waktunya udah habis.
No, no.
Enggak. If I may just quickly address, I think there was a quick question on exploration earlier. Let me assure, I know there could be a healthy proportion of geologists in the room. Exploration should not be declared dead. It would be a premature death if we, well, I can see it's the geologists in the room who are applauding. Why? There is a simple mathematical equation you have to deal with. As energy demand grows, even though the absolute energy demand grows rather, even though the proportion of oil and gas starts to dwindle over time, there needs to be new molecules to replace what is depleted. All of the practitioners here will know offshore fields, onshore fields, we're looking at a range of depletion, 6 to 8% year on year. Something needs to replace it. And until the new system is ready, you will need a replenishment of oil and gas. Now, I know that there are IOCs in the room which have taken a very strong stance against exploring for new business. So as a last favor to both my colleagues who are at the heart of it, NOCs, if the others aren't hiring geologists, come talk to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taufik. So it is quite clear that it is not easy, but then it opens, these challenges are there, but then it opens to more possibilities or even potentials that we haven't even looked at before. Efficiency, for example, and also there are other things as diversified of products that we haven't thought about if this pressing matter was not even there. So let's love our environment better, and thank you so much for all the commitments and for also talking to all of us here. Thank you, Mr. Taufik, thank you, Ibu Nicke, and thank you, Mr. Mansoor. And I'd like to invite all of you to stand up and be on the center stage as we'll hand over a memento as an appreciation to all of our speakers today. And for that, I'd like to invite Bapak Ronald Gunawan from the IPA board to give the memento to all of our honorable speakers today. Silakan, Pak. Let's give a big round of applause. And one more time to Ibu Nicke now. Forget to have your big smile, everyone. Yes. And next to Mr. Mansoor from Mubadala Energy. Thank you very much once again. And may we have a group picture, everyone, with Pak Ronald as well? A group picture. So I got one too. Thank you so much, Ronald. So that was our industry outlook. And once again, thank you so much for talking. And okay, let's have one more time a photo session. One to the left. And also I'd like to invite Mr. Greg Holman from the IPA board to also join us for this photo session. Mr. Greg Coleman, are you here? Thank you so much. Once again, all speakers, Pak Ronald, Mr. Greg as well, for being here. Terima kasih. And ladies and gentlemen, so that was a very insightful and fruitful discussion. Thank you, Pak. And also, we talked about how we navigate the energy trilemma, which is energy security, sustainability, and affordability in the oil and gas business. And next session, we'll have industry insights, so we do hope that you stay here. We're going to talk about how to maximize oil and gas's role for economic growth in the energy transition era.